You know exactly where babies come from. You learned it in school, probably from a diagram, maybe a slightly awkward class sometime in your early teens. Sperm, egg, 9 months, done. It's obvious now, almost boring. You've never had to figure it out yourself. Now, take all of that away. No textbook, no teacher, no science. No one has ever drawn a single cell. And somehow, every single ancestor you have, going back 300,000 years, still had to work out, without a single word for cell or fertilization, exactly how new humans got made. There is no other moment in ancient life where the cause and the result are separated by 9 entire months. And somehow, without a single scientific word, humans figured it out anyway. So how do you connect two events 9 months apart with zero understanding of what's happening in between? Because the answer reveals something almost unbelievable about how human knowledge actually gets built. Here's why this is a genuinely hard problem. Human gestation is roughly 280 days, about 9 months, 40 weeks. That is an enormous gap for anyone relying purely on observation to bridge with cause and effect. Compare that to almost every other survival lesson. Touch fire, feel pain, immediately. Step near a predator, feel fear, immediately. Nothing else in ancient life works on a 9-month delay. And there was no internal view of the body available at all. No anatomy charts, no understanding of internal organs beyond what could be seen in a butchered animal. No concept of cells, eggs, or anything biological in the modern sense. And here's the part that should genuinely surprise you. This isn't even a fully solved problem everywhere, even in relatively modern history. In the early 20th century, anthropologist Bronislaw Malinowski documented something remarkable in the Trobriand Islands. Some islanders described pregnancy as the result of ancestral spirits entering a woman's body, not as a direct result of intercourse itself. Think about that. A human society, documented within the last 100 years, holding a genuinely different model of where babies come from. If a society that recent could understand it differently, that tells you the connection most ancient humans eventually made was never automatic. It was never obvious. It had to be built, slowly, the hard way. So how did the majority of ancient humans, with nothing but their eyes, their memory, and each other, build an understanding solid enough to organize entire family systems around it? Long before humans understood their own bodies, they had thousands of years of direct, repeated observation of animal life cycles. Mating behavior, pregnancy, birth, infant rearing. Across nearly every species they hunted, herded, or lived alongside. Watching a pregnant animal grow heavier and slower, then give birth, then nurse its young, that gave them a visible, repeatable template for a process otherwise completely hidden inside the human body. And many animal gestation periods are shorter and far more visibly obvious than human pregnancy, which made animals a much more legible textbook for the basic pattern. Paired adults, a period of bodily change, then new life. Picture a group of early humans who've spent a full season tracking the same herd of deer. They've watched specific does grow visibly heavier across weeks, watched those does separate from the herd to give birth, watched them return days later with a wobbling new addition trailing behind. They've watched this same pattern repeat, herd after herd, season after season, their entire lives. Nobody had to explain what was happening. The pattern simply repeated itself until it became the most familiar thing in their world. Life, visibly entering the world, again and again, right in front of them. Long before humans understood their own bodies, the forest had already taught them the shape of the story. Bodies change, time passes, and something new arrives. For most of human history, people lived in groups of roughly 15 to 50 individuals, sleeping, eating, and moving in extremely close proximity. No private space whatsoever. That meant pregnancy, birth, and child development were never private events witnessed by only a mother. They were communal events, witnessed by the entire group, repeatedly, across every fertile woman's life. Generation after generation. Nothing about a changing body could stay unnoticed for long in a camp where everyone slept within feet of everyone else. Imagine being a child in an ancient camp, watching a woman's body change slowly across a full cycle of seasons. Not because anyone explained it to you, because you saw her every single day, slept near her every single night, and were simply present when, months later, a baby appeared. You didn't need a single word spoken. You'd already watched the entire pattern happen with your own eyes. The same way you watched fire catch, or rainfall, or the moon change shape. By the time you were old enough to participate in adult life, you'd already silently absorbed the pattern dozens of times over. In a world with no privacy, the entire tribe became witnesses to the same story, told over and over until nobody needed it explained anymore. In the early 20th century, anthropologist Bronislaw Malinowski documented something striking in the Trobriand Islands. Some islanders held a belief system in which pregnancy was attributed to ancestral spirits entering a woman's body, rather than a direct, exclusive causal link to sexual intercourse. This is one of the most cited examples in anthropology of a human society holding a genuinely different causal model for reproduction. Well into a period when much of the world already had a fully scientific understanding. It demonstrates something important. Recognizing the sex-to-birth connection, despite seeming completely obvious to us now, was never automatic. It required generations of consistent, attentive social observation to become embedded as simple common sense. Picture an anthropologist, decades ago, sitting with island elders, asking a question that feels almost too obvious to even ask. Where do babies come from? And receiving an answer that has nothing to do with intercourse at all. Spirits, ancestors, a completely different cause. His own assumption, the thing he considered universal common sense, simply wasn't shared by every human culture on Earth. The connection we now take as the most obvious fact in human biology turns out to be something every culture had to discover for itself, not something built into human understanding by default. What feels like the most obvious fact in the world to you was, for some human societies, never obvious at all. Which means the ancient humans who did figure it out weren't simply following instinct. They were doing real, patient, collective science without ever having the word for it. Here's the part that changes how big this story actually is. Every reveal so far has been about ancient humans gradually piecing together a causal pattern through observation. But understanding that connection didn't just satisfy curiosity. It transformed human social structure in ways far larger than reproduction itself. Once communities reliably linked paternity to specific relationships, entirely new concepts became possible for the first time in the evolution of any species on Earth. Inheritance, bloodlines, family names, structured kinship systems. Once the causal link was firmly established within a culture, it didn't just explain where babies came from. It became the organizing logic for property, for alliance building between groups, marriage as a tool connecting tribes, for who owed obligations to whom, even after death. A biological discovery quietly became the foundation of the social order. The slow, patient observation in every reveal before this didn't just keep early humans alive. It built the scaffolding for everything we now call civilization. You're back looking at that diagram. Sperm, egg, 9 months. The thing that felt almost boring at the start of this video. But now you know what it actually took to get here. Every time a family tree gets drawn, every time someone says, "That's my father's side of the family," every modern concept of inheritance and lineage rests on a discovery that nobody made all at once. It was built slowly, by people with no science, no writing, and no shortcuts, who simply refused to stop watching. They never had a textbook, a diagram, or a single scientific word for what was happening inside a body. They had something better. They had thousands of years of watching, and watching was enough to keep an entire species alive.